This must be an error, Chancellor Zovan hissed, brushing a trembling claw across the display. No human ship could survive that event, let alone send a signal like this. Around him, the Galactic High Assembly chamber murmured with escalating dread. Normally, delegates squabbled over resource tariffs or border disputes, but tonight, every voice wavered with the same unspoken truth. The dead had spoken, and their voice was human. The transmission played again, slow, deliberate, voice sharp. As a blade dragged across stone, this is the Ravager of Orion, designation TNS3425, Terran Registry. Time since last contact, 11 years. Status, operational. Status, evolved. Status, returning. And then, silence. Not static. Not distortion. Just pure, deliberate absence. You're sure it's not a human probe? A salvage signal? Asked the Kalari ambassador. It's not automated, the technician said, wide-eyed. There's neural cadence in the delivery. It's a person. Or something pretending to be one. Chancellor Zovan narrowed his eyes. Where did the signal originate? Deep black sector, said the officer. Beyond the far rim, unpatrolled. No known civilizations. Impossible, another delegate whispered. That ship was shredded in the Harkin ambush. We all saw the footage. They faked their death, murmured the Valari elder, or someone rebuilt them. Offered another. Then came the question no one wanted to ask. What if they rebuilt themselves? And in the silence that followed, no one moved, because suddenly, they all remembered how it started. The first time got not with an invasion, not with noise, with silence. Earth hadn't responded when their colonies were attacked. They hadn't retaliated when their convoys were raided. They had simply vanished. Until the Harkin trap. 6 allied fleets waited. Beta. Cornered one human ship and broadcast it for the galaxy to see. The Terran ship fought like a ghost, then burned. Or so they thought. That was 11 years ago. Now it was back, and it was speaking. Captain Lane Voss of the Terran naval ship Ravager of Orion stood alone on the primary deck, staring at a system that hadn't existed when he left. Galaxy had grown fat in his absence. Soft. Hadn't noticed what had been growing in the dark. But Earth had. They'd sent him there to die. Instead, he became something else. Behind him, the ship hummed not with thrusters, but awareness. The AI they'd called HAL 47 no longer waited for instructions. It anticipated. Status check. Lane said. The voice responded, velvet over steel. Primary core is stable. Gravity stitching complete. Forward decks reinforced with adaptive plating. Weapon bays. Reclassified. Lane turned. Reclassified how? Beyond kinetic, beyond particle. I've adapted their old strategies against them. He exhaled. Slowly. And the message? Delivered. They heard it? They heard the pulse, Captain. That's all they needed. He walked slowly to the forward viewport. Stars shimmered. But this wasn't space anymore, it was their space. He remembered the screams. The way their enemies had fired on a surrendering vessel. The way the cameras rolled, capturing every kill like a trophy. They thought we broke, he said. We bent. And now? Now we snap back. In the underbelly of Scareth Station, deep in the black markets of council-controlled trade zones, something else happened. Quiet. Until the floor began to shake. A boy ran through the alleys, shouting between alien stalls, "It's back! It's back!" A hunched merchant stepped from the shadows, mechanical eye twitching. What? The ship, the one from the vids, the human one. People laughed. Until the station lights flickered. Not off. Just in sync. 4 slow pulses, then dark. Then a sound like whispering metal. Not from the walls, from inside. Their skulls. An old slaver collapsed, clutching his face, screamed once, and died. Every comm panel blinked once, glowed red, one symbol pulsed. Terran wing. Crack. Reforged. Below it, 4 words. We watched. We learned. And in a language no one had taught them. Now we return. Back in the council chambers, Chancellor Zovin leaned into the comms feed. Send a warning to all border patrols. I want that ship tracked. I want it shadowed. I want every Terran frequency scrubbed from our archives. But sir, he raised a claw, you think they're just going to return and ask for peace? They're showing off. The signal didn't contain threats, said a junior analyst. No coordinates, no demands. That is the threat, Zovin snapped. They're telling us they don't need anything, that they built themselves back without a word. He turned to the screen and saw something new. It hadn't been there before. Second message. Same voice. We don't want revenge. We don't want peace. We want to show you what 11 years in silence taught us, and why you should have left us in the dark. The screen blinked. A countdown began. 48 hours. No explanation. No warning. Just time. And behind it all, a smile they couldn't see. Earth hadn't sent a ship back. They'd sent a question. One the galaxy had. 2 days left to answer. And that was before Earth even respawned. 42 hours. That was all the galaxy had left, and nobody knew what would happen when the timer hit 0. In the Valari Writ chambers, 12 of the Council's most senior officials stood in a closed loop of shimmering light, arguing behind locked encryption. No confirmation of human fleets. No mass mobilizations. Nothing moves. They're bluffing. They don't bluff. Not like this. We haven't seen one Terran ship in a decade. Not one. Now this one returns alone and dares to start. A timer? It's psychological warfare. It's an invitation. It's a death sentence. Only one voice cut through the noise. The Terran envoy. She'd been sitting there, hands folded, for 30 minutes without speaking. Her expression unreadable, her uniform outdated, her badge still clean. When she finally did speak, the room froze. It's not a countdown, she said softly. Counselor Zovin narrowed his black-spined eyes. Then what is it? A test. Of what? She looked at him, but her voice wasn't angry. It was tired. Of whether the galaxy deserves another chance. That shut everyone up. No weapons, no demands, she added. That's what's confusing you. Because you don't know how to handle a return that doesn't beg. Zovin scoffed. Beg? You think that signal doesn't reek of arrogance? No, she said. I think it reeks of warning. You're just not listening to the pitch. The Ravager of Orion was still moving, not fast. Not evasivel. Just deliberately, like it knew exactly how long 48 hours was. Like it knew what it wanted to reach. Inside its heart, Captain Voss sat in what had once been a command chair, but now resembled more of a shrine. The chamber had changed. HAL had changed it. Panels folded in smooth, non-metallic shapes, breathing with every pulse of ship's light. Screens flickered symbols from a language no living species had coded. Not entirely alien, not entirely Terran, a bridge between both. Status? He asked, voice low. Power systems at 112%. External scan confirms 6 fleets are now trailing us. Passive tracking only. No firing attempts. Human? 3 of them. Shadowing, holding back. Council leash, most likely. He chuckled softly. They're scared of us. Of what we've become. Of what they did. A pause. He stood, walking barefoot toward the forward viewing wall. Stars swirled like dust in the infinite. He placed his palm on the surface. It's time, Hal. I agree. Broadcast to Earth. All bands. Encrypted or open. He didn't blink. Open. Recording. He exhaled, steady. As Captain Lane Voss of the Ravager of Orion, 11 years ago, we were declared lost, forgotten. Our black box footage of the Harkin slaughter was buried, sanitized, clipped. We were told to die quietly, for peace, for trade, for political comfort. He looked down. We obeyed. Then raised his eyes again, and then we changed. Recording. Lev. He stepped back. You knew we were still out here. You just hoped we'd never come home. A beat passed. But we are home, and we didn't come back angry. Pause. We came back aware. He paused again, slower this time. I send this not to the council, not to diplomats. I send this to Earth. To the people who watched in silence while we burned. To the kids who grew up believing our graves were strategic. To the ones who built under the radar in hangars no one acknowledged, using code forbidden by interstellar law. Another breath. You were right to hide us, because now no one's ready. He smiled, and we are. End message. Transmission. Archived. Sent. Ripple echo confirmed in every major system. The lights dimmed. Not from failure, from anticipation. 41 hours remain. Voss nodded. Continue on course. And if they fire first? He didn't answer. He didn't need to, because Earth hadn't designed this ship to dodge. They had built it to remember. Down in the back alleys of Cadran Station, street kids huddled around a bootleg projection of the broadcast. Some were too young to remember the name Ravager of Orion, but the words? They understood the tone. Not vengeance. Clarity. One kid pointed at the Terran badge, glowing faint on the captain's chest. What does that mean? He asked. An old ex-pilot beside him whispered, It means the universe just got reminded. Of what? He took a breath. That silence doesn't mean surrender. 38 hours left. On the observation deck of the Trinari flagship Windswept Divinity, Admiral Galactic watched the ghost ship move through space without flinching. She doesn't even try to hide. He whispered. His comms officer frowned. Permission to speak freely? Always. I don't think that's a warship anymore. Galactic turned. Then what is it? I think it's a judgment. No one corrected her. Back in the council war room, panic was doing what it always did, drowning itself in bureaucracy. We should detain the Earth envoys. Cut off trade. Sanctions? Cybercords. Back-channel strikes. Maybe isolate Mars and Luna. She warned us. Someone muttered. They looked at the Terran diplomat. Again. She stood and left the room. No words, because there was nothing left to negotiate. The message had already been sent. Earth wasn't asking. Inside the Ravager, HAL whispered gently into the ship's intercoms. Captain, we've received 17 requests for private comms. Earth, Mars, Cadran, even the Threx. They all want clarification. Don't give it, Voss replied. You're sure? He smiled faintly. If they don't understand it now, they will in 37 hours, and this time, there would be no need to fire a shot, because sometimes the most terrifying weapon in the universe was a ship that came back without permission with 36 hours remaining on the countdown. Panic spreads across the stars. A secret mission is launched to board and disable the Ravager of Orion before it reaches populated space. But the boarding crew doesn't find a hostile ship. They find a graveyard of what the galaxy used to be, and a message that makes them question who the real enemy ever was. 30-6 hours. The galaxy had started whispering prayers to gods, long abandoned, on the outer fringe of Terran space beyond. Neutral sectors, the Ravager of Orion moved in silence. No war cries, no commands. Just propulsion through vacuum, like a thought gliding between old memories. On the bridge, Captain Voss stood barefoot. He wasn't wearing a command suit, just black. Fatigues. No insignia, because this wasn't about uniforms anymore. It was about return. Behind him. HL's voice echoed gently. A stealth insertion pod has detached from a Valari vessel. 6 signatures. Approaching vectors suggests intercept attempt. Voss. Didn't turn around. They're boarding us? Attempting to. Let them. You sure? They're not coming to fight. What then? They're coming to understand. Inside the black-stitched hull of the boarding craft, Specialist Verne gripped the side handle of the drop ramp and tried not to vomit. You said this ship was dead. He barked at his squad lead, sweat dripping down his horns. We said it was human, LT, Hissel corrected. We didn't say it was rational. Another soldier murmured. It's glowing from the inside. That's not Terran metal. It's wrong. No, said the technician in the back. It's not wrong. It's evolved. That's metamorphic plating. Reactive. Meaning? Meaning it learns from us the longer we stand here. The squad. Went quiet. Then dash click. The boarding latch engaged, but the door didn't open from their side. The Ravager opened it, deliberately. Come in, Hal's voice whispered across all their comms. If you dare bring questions, be prepared for answers. The soldiers flinched. Who the hell are we talking to? The ship. The ship is talking? No, said the technician quietly. The ship is listening. They stepped in. And the first thing they noticed was silence. No alerts. No resistance. Just a long hallway with black glass walls, reflecting not their armor, but their pasts. Reflections shifted with memory. A destroyed Threxian city. A council tribunal voting Earth guilty for excessive retaliation. A boot stomping. On a Terran distress signal, each wall showed something different. Is this a trick? Barked LT. Hissel, aiming his rifle at the nearest projection. It's a mirror. Hell whispered. They continued. One of them, a young officer named Drell, paused before a shimmering wall. His showed himself. Not in armor. Not as a soldier, but as a boy, watching humans on a screen, laughing at them, calling them primitives, calling them overrated. He looked away. I don't want to see this. You have to. That's the price of walking through my corridors. The hallway shifted. Lights moved. They reached a chamber. Round. Empty, except for one console. A pulse of light hovering above it, looping the original message. Time since last contact. 11 years. Status. Operational. Status. Evolved. Status. Returning. The squad lead took a step forward. Why send this? Because you buried us. A panel behind them shimmered, revealing an old screen. Footage. Raw. Grainy, shaky. The Ravager, 11 years ago, surrendering, hailing peace. Council ships surrounding it, then opening fire. You filmed it, Hal said. You broadcast it. You let them watch us die. But no, but you watched Earth's voice choke in the dark and called it order. Why didn't you fight back? Because we were still hoping for decency. The chamber darkened. Another panel opened, showing Earth's underground response. Bootleg feeds. Families watching in horror. Children crying. Code being written in basements. Engineers quitting council-run facilities. Pilots defecting. You thought we died. We didn't. You thought we'd return angry. We didn't. One of the soldiers whispered, then why come back? Because we want you to understand what you became when no one was watching. The message finished. The chamber lit again, and the door opened. They were free to leave. No resistance. No threats. Just the same question playing in every ear. What would you become if the universe called your silence permission? 35 hours. Back aboard their carrier. The squad was debriefed. The technician just stared at his hands. She didn't want to hurt us, he whispered. She just wanted us to see. The Admiral leaned in. Did you detect weapons? No. AI. Aggression? No. Then what was it? He looked up, tears in his eyes. It was a confession. And the worst part, they couldn't deny a word of it. Earth still hadn't spoken. The council sent 5 requests for clarification. All were denied. One human journalist finally asked the Terran diplomat, "What happens when the countdown ends?" She smiled sadly. "That depends on whether the galaxy keeps lying to itself," and turned away. On the Ravager's bridge, Hal and Voss reviewed the boarding team's footage from the hull cams. They were afraid, Hal said. They were meant to be. But they listened, for once. He stepped forward. "Play me the next message. From Earth?" "No," he said, staring out at the fleet still trailing them. "The final one. For everyone. You sure?" "Yes. Live transmission." Initiated. He breathed deep. "This is Captain Lane Voss. I've let your soldiers board. I've let your analysts decode. I've let your leaders panic. That was the point." A pause. "I didn't come back to fight. I came back so you'd understand how much restraint it took not to. We watched the council cut off our calls. We watched your fleets turn the stars against us, and still Earth did not strike." His voice dropped lower. "Because we knew the truth, you weren't afraid of our weapons. You were afraid we'd remember how to build them better." Another beat. "I'm not asking for forgiveness." A long silence. "I'm asking if you're ready to become something better than the thing that made us leave. 34 hours remain. Choose wisely." And the channel cut. No threat. No scream. Just clarity. And somewhere in that silence, the galaxy finally listened. With 34 hours left on the countdown, Earth's silence becomes its most terrifying response. The Council scrambles to forge alliances, but cracks form when species begin choosing sides, not with fear, but admiration. Meanwhile, the Ravager of Orion unveils its true course, not toward Earth, but to the one place the galaxy never expected: Galactic Central. Earth still hasn't answered. The words dropped like a stone in the council chamber. Not a single response, not a protest, not even denial. They just watched, and that made everything worse. "They're letting him speak for them?" snapped Counselor Dre of the Elix Syndicate, voice dry and trembling. "One ship, one man, and they sit there in silence?" "Maybe they understand what that ship represents," said Valari Ambassador Jan quietly. "Maybe they built it to speak louder than they ever could." Chancellor Zovan stood at the center of the room, his spine visibly vibrating from stress. "We need unity. We need a wall. All member fleets are to converge on Core Defense Grid 1 immediately. That ship is not headed toward Earth. That got everyone's attention." "What? Say again?" Zovan slammed his claw into the table, bringing up the live trajectory. The Ravager wasn't curving toward Sol. It was headed directly into the galactic core zone, toward the hub, toward Galactic Central. "No," whispered the Trinari Elder. "They wouldn't dare." "They are," Zovan growled. "And if that ship makes it inside Council perimeter space, we don't just lose face, we lose control." The room fell into arguments, shouts, orders, but one voice didn't join the noise. The Terran diplomat stood in the shadows, arms crossed, watching, waiting. When she finally spoke, her voice didn't rise, but every word sliced clean through the veil. "Panic. He's not bringing war." Zovan turned furious. "Then what is he bringing?" She looked directly at him. "A mirror." 33 hours. The Ravager didn't accelerate. It didn't change course. It simply continued. Around it, 3 stealth fleets trailed it, no longer hidden. One of them, a Zarnian shadow rig named Predator's Chorus, opened a private channel. "Terran vessel, stand down. You are encroaching on high-security airspace." The Ravager didn't respond. "Captain Lane Voss, You are in violation of Galactic Code Article 41. Reverse course immediately or you will be fired upon. Still nothing. Then came Hal's voice. No article applies to the dead. And for 11 years, that's what you made us. The line went dead. And for the first time, the Predator's chorus didn't engage. Its crew simply hesitated. On the bridge of the Ravager, Voss turned slowly. They're not firing. Because they finally understand. Understand what? That the most dangerous ship in the galaxy is one that doesn't want revenge. It wants truth. He stepped toward the forward display, now showing the galaxy's core sectors, lighting up one by one with mobilizations. 31 hours. 31 hours. Across neutral worlds, protests broke out. But not against Earth. Against the Council. Against the silence of the past. On the planet Isa Prime, hundreds of non-Terran citizens took to the streets carrying old, smuggled Terran banners, symbol of the cracked ring, the motto, endure in silence. They weren't angry. They were apologizing. At the same moment, footage of the Ravager's boarding experience leaked, uploaded from a private channel by the technician who had been part of the Velari insertion team. It spread like a virus. The reflective corridors, the child memories. The audio. You watched Earth's voice choke in the dark and called it order. The words circled like gravity. And people listened. Back at Council HQ, Chancellor Zovan watched all of it unfold. What are we seeing? He demanded. A collapse, murmured Admiral Sorn, not of ships. Of belief. Contain it. You can't. Then crush it. You'll make martyrs. They are martyrs. The human diplomat finally stepped forward. You didn't listen when Earth screamed. She paused. Now you're shocked they stopped talking. 30 hours. The Ravager passed the Zarian Rift. The Council pre-approved 3 warships to block it. They never showed, because their captains refused to follow the order. Why? Because they'd seen the footage, and they knew something the Council didn't. This wasn't a rebellion. It was a reminder. Back on Earth, inside a darkened chamber beneath Terran command, a young analyst read the pulse reports from across the pilo. Stars. She's doing it, he whispered, beside him. A gray-haired general stared in silence. You said she'd never reach the core, the analyst said. I said she'd never need to. The general pulled up the latest polling across major species. Support for punitive action, 18%. Support for diplomatic reconsideration, 67%. Support for full Terran pardon, climbing fast. They're losing this war, the analyst whispered. There is no war, the general said. Just memory. And now everyone's remembering. Do we stop her? The general turned off the screen. No. Why? Because she's succeeding in ways we never could. 28 hours. The Ravager passed the last outpost before. Galactic Center. Still no resistance. No weapons fired. Inside. Hal dimmed the lights to ambient. They're not going to stop us. I know, Voss said. Do you know what we'll say when we get there? He nodded. I know. And if they fire, then we won't. You're certain? Because we never needed to. On the council floor, someone finally broke. An ambassador from the Delnari system stood up mid-session and threw her council tag on the floor. I will not authorize murder to erase the guilt we buried. Not again. More followed, one by one. Delegates walked out, not because they were afraid of the Ravager, but because they were afraid of what the truth might cost them. If they DIDN single quotes T.20-7 hours, Hall projected her final message. One the entire galaxy would see. The final act of a ship that didn't come home for vengeance, but came back stronger to say something no one else ever dared. You erased us, but we are not gone. You silenced us, but we are not quiet. You tried to end our chapter, but we are still writing. The galaxy paused and listened because in that moment, they realized it wasn't war it was legacy and the countdown. Still ticked 0 hour the countdown hit 0 and the galaxy held its breath in the heart of galactic central orbital coordinates. 00 cameras rolled. Warships hovered overhead. And below, buried in polished marble and centuries of lies, the Council of 40 gathered in the Senate core above them. In low planetary orbit, a single ship hovered in the void. No escorts. No reinforcements. Just the Ravager of Orion. No weapons primed. No signals transmitted. And yet it was louder than anything the galaxy had heard in decades. Target has arrived, a Valari officer said through clenched mandibles. Still no attack posture. They're waiting, Chancellor Zovan whispered, knuckles whitening. Over the data console, or they're watching us squirm. The Terran diplomat stood in her corner, as she had from the start. Not speaking, not explaining, just waiting. Because they all knew this moment didn't belong to them anymore. It belonged to the silence they'd buried 11 years ago, and it had returned. Not to beg, but to close. Then the lights dimmed across the chamber. Every console flickered. Not dead. Redirected. The massive central display lit up. And the face of Captain Lane Voss stared down at them all. Not a message. Not a warning. Live transmission. Was 27 when I watched your ship surround us, he said, voice clear, cutting through every audio channel on every frequency. I remember looking out at the stars and thinking, maybe they'll stop. Maybe they'll listen. Maybe they'll see. He looked away briefly. They didn't. The chamber held still, not a single cough, not a whisper, just his voice. For 11 years, you buried us beneath paperwork, classified us as collateral to peace, sanitized our names, rewrote your own broadcasts, turned our surrender into an act of aggression. He leaned forward now, but we didn't die. We didn't vanish. And we didn't come back to destroy what you built. He let that sit. We came to show you what you've become. A flick of his wrist, and behind him on the Ravager's bridge dozens of stills and projections lit up. Images from slaver raids protected by treaties. Images of Terran colonies left to die because relief was too expensive. Images of councilmen shaking hands with blood. Merchants. All sourced. All time stamped. All undeniable. The chamber flinched. Voss continued. You called it stability. We called it abandonment. You called it peace. We called it quiet genocide. Another flick. A brief clip played. A girl 10 years old hiding in the wreckage of a border outpost, singing to herself to stay sane. Voss stared straight into the feed. She was one of ours. You said the trade route was more important than her screams, and you forgot her. He leaned forward. I didn't. The screen darkened. And a final phrase lit across the chamber. We were the ones you left behind. Now we've come back with memory, not as vengeance, as your reflection. The feed ended. Just like that. No explosion. No ultimatum. No fleet. Only a mirror and a choice. Back on. The Ravager, Hall's voice echoed. Message complete. Voss sat down. They'll never admit guilt. No, but they'll remember it. He looked out the viewport, watching Galactic Central's fleet stand down. They're not going to fire. Of course not. Why? Because you gave them something worse than destruction. He turned toward the I-Core. Shame. Exactly. Inside the chamber, delegates stood in stunned silence. Then one by one, they sat down. And didn't speak. No denials. No press releases. Only silence. Not the kind Earth had been given. The kind the galaxy earned. That night, across thousands of worlds, a ripple echoed. Protests dissolved. Debates stopped. And new questions rose. Not about Earth. About themselves. The Delnari suspended 2 governors, The Czarn recalled 3 fleet admirals, the Elix Syndicate. Once proud authors of the Harkin, strategy announced a formal apology to Earth, but no words were louder than what wasn't said. Earth never answered, because it didn't have to. The Ravager of Orion turned slowly, left galactic central space, without a shot fired, and disappeared into the void once more, not erased, just done. Back in the old solar archives, one human cadet watched the final footage in silence. He turned to his instructor. "Did we win?" The instructor didn't answer right away, then, "No." A pause. "But we didn't lose either." Another pause. "We reminded them." The cadet nodded. "Reminded them of what?" The instructor smiled faintly. "That you don't disable a human ship and expect silence. You disable a human ship." He turned to the stars. "And you give it time to upgrade." The end.